If you're like me and love working with planetary energies to navigate life's challenges with clarity and confidence, well, then this episode is for you. Our in house astrologer and cosmic coach, Laurel Kassor, breaks down the July forecast, and you won't want to miss it. Welcome to It Gets Better From Here podcast, where we help divorced women reclaim their power and rebuild a life even better than before. I am your host, Sherille Marquez, and I know firsthand what it's like to go through the pain and the struggles of divorce, as I have been through it myself. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. I am so excited to have our cosmic coach and astrologer, Laurel Kassor, back for the July forecast. And so without further ado, I will turn it over to her. And that way she can brief us on, what's happening with the cosmos. You have been so spot on, Laurel. So I'm excited to hear what we can expect or, just look out for in the month of July.
Hey, thanks for having me back, Sherille. And thank you. Thank you. Just doing my humble duty to help translate these cosmic currents to us down here on Earth. So I hope everyone had a nice June. It was very innovative. I know as I'm like reflecting on June, it was so many new ideas, conversations, so much stimulation. So I think that as we move into July, we can expect a little bit of that stimulation to start to simmer down a bit. I know we've just been like almost info overload with different possibilities and avenues and interests and people to talk about and things to do and details to take care of, right? And that attributes a lot to like Gemini season throughout most of June. But as we enter into July, we are moving into a much more warm, fuzzy, kind of comfy, cozy overtone as we are deepening our kind of grasp into Cancer season here. So as we start July, Mercury actually is making a trine to Neptune. So Mercury's in Cancer and it's going to trine Neptune in Pisces on the 1st. So we're kind of like pulling in July into this dreamy, very intuitive, kind of like floaty vibe. When planets are in that kind of contact together, they're being supportive of one another, which means that we're kind of like reaping a little more benefits down here. It's going to be a really important day and time to like trust your instincts and engage in maybe creative or spiritual pursuits. This is a great time for like meditating, for connecting with source energy, like touching base with your spirituality or anything creative, like high key poetry energy here. Like being able to express ourselves in really imaginative and unlimited type of ways there. It's very much a magical thinking kind of day. So feel free to really engage and channel that energy as we enter into July into like what's possible for you and how do you communicate that and how do you think about that? Because we're really supported at the beginning of July. The next day, Neptune, who we were just talking about a little bit, is actually going to station retrograde in Pisces. And whenever a planet stations retrograde, which they all do it except for the sun and the moon, at some point they all do it, right? It's just this kind of inlaid time for a lot of reflection to occur around the topics of that energy. And again, Neptune is this very dreamy, intuitive, ethereal, kind of spiritual, mystical type of energy. It really deals in what is not, right? So Neptune is kind of all about like what is possible because it is not focused on the limitations of the real world there. So as Neptune stations retrograde, it's going to be an opportunity over the next several months for us to really reflect and get introspective about what our dreams are, how we have maybe been contributing to maybe any illusions that we have been living inside of, right? And kind of like peer the veil, peer behind the veil, pull the veil back a little bit on these kind of more subtle energies. And then also on the 2nd, Mercury, who we just talked about again on the 1st, both these planets are up to some business early in the week. Mercury is going to move into Leo and And so our communications are going to start to take a shift towards being more bold, dramatic, expressive. Mercury is kind of our internal messenger. And so when Mercury enters a new energy, a new space in the sky, that's reflected in our messaging, our communication, our thoughts, our interactions with each other and with ourselves. And in Leo, Mercury is loud, baby. It's proud, baby. Like, it does not mess around. It wants to scream from the rooftops. These are my thoughts. These are my ideas. Here's who I am and what I have to say and what I have to share. Right. So we're going to be moving into a couple week period where it's going to be a little more projective. We're going to be a little more prompt to be external and to demonstrative with our words, with our declarations. It gives monologue, right? Like, it has this like flair of dramatics to the ways that we're interacting, communicating, and processing and receiving information. So know that there's a little more firepower in our words over the next few weeks, and be just a little extra mindful around anything pride
Mm.
related, right? Because that might spark up I got thoughts about that, right?
Right. And
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, Laurel. I'm just thinking about our
please do.
audience of divorced women and single moms. And so if they are, speaking with their co-parenting or whatnot, just be very mindful of how you're showing up, because I mean the ultimate goal is to create a really safe and stable space for your children. And you don't even realize like the small things that you don't think that they're paying attention to, they really are all the time, and also absorbing the
Absolutely,
energy.
especially around like you just sparked a thought in me, especially around like maybe nonverbal communication,
Hmm.
right? Like, that's still a form of communication, and the quality of Leo is that it is the performer, it is the entertainer, it is the demonstrator, right? It's the role model. So when Mercury enters Leo, there's a lot of awareness, not only on words. I mean, right? There's always an emphasis on words, but there is on like what is how are we expressing the thoughts themselves? Like, do we have big eye rolls,
Mm.
right? Like, do we do the woe is me kind of thing? There's this extra like theatrical like tone that comes into our communications there. So we're not saying like don't show it if you're feeling it, but think about how it is a model, right?
Hmm.
Like, we're modeling how to communicate, especially when Mercury is in Leo, where it's going to be for a few weeks there. So yeah, that's
That's
Mercury in
awesome.
Leo.
I'm glad that you added that on too, because it's those body language cues that people don't realize is really actually prevalent and more obvious than what the words that are spoken. And if you're, a single mom, especially, like, your children are always paying attention, absorbing the energy, and it's palpable. So you cannot deny that. And also, I wanted to touch on the first thing that you said too about basically what I heard is like turning in, and just like, for me, how it's really timely. You're so good. You are fantastic, Laurel. And
Oh, you make me
yes,
blush.
because all the things that you're, saying is really hitting and resonating in a very timely manner, because I'm also in a place where I went on a 2 week vacation, and it allowed me to stop the distractions of doing a gazillion things, and allowed me to
Mhm.
reflect and realize how far removed I've been from my center. And so I am redoing my infrastructure so that, the next half of the year I'm in a different place, mentally, spiritually, physically, than where I was in the beginning of the year. I'm saying, like, the abundance that I had been calling and creating, I did not have the proper infrastructure, which is why I fainted. I was burnt out. And so this is just perfect with what you're saying for July, is to like tune in and basically just, imagine, right? And create from within.
Absolutely, 100%. That's like so very, very aligned, especially with this first week of July's energy, which really has a lot of very reflective, nurturing qualities to it, as well as this kind of opportunity to kind of be like, okay, but I can walk the talk as well, you know? And so, as we continue to move through that first week of July, Venus in Cancer, this kind of comfy, cozy, safe, familiar space, actually going to make a positive trine. Kind of interaction with the planet Saturn, which is fabulous for strengthening relationships with our stability, enhancing our kind of emotional depth and commitment to enduring partnerships or resources or support systems. It's a really good day for solid commitment, whether that's to people or projects that you really care about there. So it's like we're really got this like vibe going through to imagine what's possible and to really kind of commit to engage in and relate with other people and share this, especially in your close circles there. But I will say on July 3rd, Mercury, who had just entered Leo, is going to make an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. And so there is some potential this week, although it's like overall pretty nice and flowing. There is this little bump in the road potentially where some power struggles might arise. It's going to call on us to have like very open, very honest, and maybe deep conversations looking to maybe resolve any underlying maybe power struggles there, the ways that words may be weaponized in certain spaces, right? So it's kind of like as soon as we start to orient and get curious about how are we expressing our thoughts and our messaging, there is almost immediately this opportunity for us to be to observe any imbalances and kind of like work towards a conscious mediation of exposing power imbalances there. So that is something to keep in mind this first week of July. But then at the end of it, Mars in Taurus is going to sextile Saturn in Pisces. This is great for making practical steps towards long-term achievements and goals. It blends determination and like kind of a structured imagination
Mm,
with patience and a
I love that.
step-by-step kind of methodical approach, hopefully towards the resolution of any of those power in discrepancies that came up there. And then right at the end of the week, we have a new moon in Cancer, a great opportunity for setting intentions around home, around family, around emotional support, around self-care, acceptance and belonging, you know, really finding ways to hold and cradle and nurture what you cherish and what you devote your heart to. You know, it's a really wonderful time for nurturing beginnings around care and connection and listening and learning how to listen and enhancing your listening capabilities there. So the first week of July, honestly, to me, it's really about trusting your instincts, engaging in creative and spiritual activities that really help to center you, anchor
Mhm.
you into your home base, and also an opportunity for you to dive deep into any maybe power imbalances that might be a good opportunity to set those intentions around like, well, how can I create more
Mm.
balance in the way I'm thinking and communicating myself and my feelings, especially.
That's really great insight and awareness for our audience. So that way that, because the first thing to change is self-awareness. If you're not aware of how you're even showing up, how in the world can you even change? So I hope
Mhm.
that, for our audience out there, please really, listen to the advice and what the cosmos are saying to us here. That way you can get ahead and also be mindful of how you're showing up.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get into the second week of July. This is basically the 8th through the 14th is how I have it broken up. And this week is really focused on communicating boldly, making long-term plans, and embracing passionate expressions of love. So July 8th, Mercury in Leo is going to make a sextile to Jupiter in Gemini. This is a very expansive kind of intellectual, philosophical orientation of energy. It helps us to kind of grow the pool of our communication. It's a good day for like having the right words to say. It's kind of like your brain kind of like does a little mini expansion there, and you're like, holy hell, look at this idea. Look at this way of communicating this principle or this value. Really excellent day for learning and for sharing ideas. Like, it's a great conversation day. It seems exciting. It seems stimulating, really putting a spotlight on what you are creating, and then kind of finding ways through maybe research or learning or or conversations, ways to expand it in new directions. So I really am loving the energy on that July 8th day. July 10th, the sun in Cancer is going to trine Saturn in Pisces. So we just saw Venus do this a few days before, and now the sun's kind of catching up here. And so this is like a very nice day that has kind of this like grounded and responsible energy around it. And it really supports like shining a light on like practical, strategic, long-term plans and commitments that we want to nurture, that we want to grow, that feel intuitively good to us, that are focused around something that we're really looking to emotionally invest in over a long period of time. So I really like that energy too. I love that they're coming on the heels of each other. Then July 11th, the following day, Venus in Cancer is going to make a trine to that Neptune in Pisces. So we are getting a lot of compassion energy, a lot of like it's very emotional, it's very warm, it's very fuzzy, it's very like rose-colored glasses. Right, which is fabulous in certain settings. Like, we love this rose-colored glass energy that is kind of sweeping through when it's placed in safe containers, right? So pouring into something can pour back into you. It's
Hmm.
just very bright and shiny. It's very warm and fuzzy. It's very creative. It's very romantic energy there. So great for dating. If that's something that we have on the table, it's like a nice day for a date. But if you do set a date, know that it's rose-colored glasses day as well,
Yes.
right? So it's like
Yeah.
two truths there.
Right. And I'm just, as you're talking about that, Laurel, I'm just thinking, like, don't be fooled by smoke and mirrors. That's what I'm hearing. It's like, allow still to, yes, enjoy the moment for what it is, but at the same time, don't lose yourself either,
Right.
right? Is that that's what I'm hearing
100%.
with this?
Yes, and I mean, it definitely airs a little bit more on the like truly enjoy it side of things. I just think that it's important to always recognize whenever we're working with Neptune that part of what Neptune's whole shtick is possibilities, right? Potentials, that transcendence of what is real, which can be again absolutely stunning and lovely and beautiful in many ways. But we just want to know that, like, okay, this can be the most magical night of my life, and it might actually be. But let's remember, like, we're gonna wake up, the glass slipper is gonna be off eventually, and let's see how this fairy tale plans out.
I love
But
this.
truly enjoy it for what it is,
I
right?
love this, Laurel, and because like for my own experience, and I'm sure a lot of our audience can relate to this, is that we were part of a unit. Okay, I was married for 13 years, and so I wanted to belong, and I was trying to really fit into, situations, and I was already at the end when I'm supposed to just be enjoying the moment for what it is, but my mind, that's where it was going, because I had that longing to be a part of a relationship. So
Hmm.
made a lot of mistakes there, but this is just so key and so spot on for where we're at, and just again awareness. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Love it. So the same day, July 11th, Venus, who literally just made this nice, beautiful, kind of like glowing, dazzling connection to Neptune, well, Venus is going to enter Leo, where Mercury is hanging out now. And so this is like really fires up the social light in us, right? Like Venus has so much to do with how we engage with people, how we connect to people, how we relate to people, our kind of aesthetic taste and preferences. She's the it girl of the cosmos. And so she's entering Leo, which is essentially center stage of the cosmos. So she is like fully living in her starlit, that's what they're called, starlit, like fantasy, where we're expressing, we're dramatic, we love what we love, we don't love what we don't love energy, where we also get very like demonstrative with our affections too. We really, like I said, we like really show up to love what we love, and we really don't show up to not love what we don't love, right? So it has this theatrical quality to how we engage with each other. It's very passionate energy. It's very, like I said, dramatic energy. But it's really gonna like kind of put this like spotlight onto security and stability in especially relationships, in addition to just like resources as well. But that is Venus and Leo. I've got a soft spot for Venus and Leo. I think she's a fun time.
I love it. I love it. And it's right in the almost the middle of the month, right?
Right. Yep. The 11th. Yep. She enters in then. But here's the catch of any of the planets entering Leo right now. Just like Mercury made its opposition to Pluto in Aquarius, Venus is almost immediately going to make her opposition to Pluto in Aquarius on the 12th, too. So this is like, again, we are like entering into expressive dramatics, show out mode, and immediately being met with this opportunity to observe power imbalances in our relationships very specifically, and how maybe there's been certain detachment in certain relationships maybe that might be time to address or call attention to, or be like, I'm ready to engage again. Or other maybe some shadowy things that we've like maybe kept like hidden away, we haven't wanted to deal with. It's kind of like, okay, we got this full spectrum of opportunity here to start figuring out how to balance the need for evolution and progress with the need to build relationships that feel really authentic and really genuine. So do know there is a little like rocking boat there. Luckily, these oppositions to Pluto don't last for too long, but it can it can kind of bring up or demonstrate the polarity of deep-seated issues in relationships. But if you're aware of it and you're like, oh my gosh, there's this opportunity for balancing out how we express our affections, how we express our needs and our desires, that we could really transform and grow and evolve this connection or this relationship in some way. So that's the second week. It's honestly like pretty smooth there until that little like boom, 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 at the end of that second week
That's
of
a
July.
possibility. That's totally, something that can, with your insight, we can navigate through. And also, again, gosh, I know I sound like a broken record, but the awareness of it all is just really key.
Absolutely. You and me both, girl. Broken record city over here. I'm just like, awareness, insight. We can use this as a tool for perspective.
A hundred
Right?
percent.
Like, okay, so let's get into the third week of July, which would be like the 15th to the 21st. And I gotta say that Venus's little opposition, not little, but Venus's opposition to Pluto definitely set us up for what appears to me to be the maybe bumpiest of the weeks in July. So it's kind of like we get that right at the tail end, that Venus Pluto opposition kind of bringing into view any relational and power imbalances that it's like we might have thought about when Mercury and made that opposition, but then we're kind of like, we're going to engage about it around that July 12th point there. And then as we get into the 15th, this is a big week. The themes seem to be around embracing change, taking inspired actions, preparing for some transformative experiences, and also being flexible and open. So there is a tonal shift as we move into this third week of July, where we were previously sitting in a lot of like comfy, cozy, creative, emotionally connective, supportive spaces. And I do want to note that for some of us that may come through as topics around or events around those topics, bringing them to the forefront there. But it certainly was a focus on a bit more of like warmth, acceptance, and belonging, or at least the pursuit of those things. And then as we enter into this third week on the 15th, Mars in Taurus makes a conjunction with Uranus also in Taurus. So that means they're coming together. They're like aligning in the sky from our viewpoint here on Earth. And so that is like very big, expect the unexpected energy, brace for change energy. It's a very powerful time for liberation, for freedom, for independence, for like the lightning strike pa, 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 of action. It can be incredibly inspired action, but I will say that Mars is a pretty aggressive energy. It's about force, it's about assertion, it's about movement, it's about initiative, right? Like that is the archetype of Mars, and Uranus is the archetype of like rebellion, revolution, liberation, freedom, right? Change, progress, right? And when so you put these two energies together, you can see how it could become very destabilizing, because it'd be like this push for freedom, this fight for liberation, right? It can certainly have like aggressive rebellion, right? Like we're just taking some of these keywords and smushing them there. But Mars and Uranus together have been noted to be some shaky ground there, and this is in the sign of Taurus, so it can maybe shake some of our stability, our sense of security, our sense of attachment a little bit. I mean, this ain't the first rodeo of this energy, obviously, and this ain't our first rodeo even dealing with some of this energy recently. Uranus for everybody has been shaking things up for about 2 months now, like a lot of focus around it. And Mars is just kind of coming in to like shake anything left, right? And be like, get it out of here. It's got to go, right? So, although this is a very potent moment for there to be this like liberation and this freedom of like of action and breakthrough and break out energy, it can feel chaotic and it can feel destabilizing. So that's just something to hold with you as you're moving through maybe this inspired decision for change you might make, or that might be happening around you and maybe affecting you in some way, is recognizing that like, oh, something is breaking loose here, something is being liberated here, even if right now all I see is debris, right? Is remembering that like, oh yeah, oftentimes when there is a big push or forceful change being made, it creates a little dust in the process, right?
I love how you said that, because I'm just thinking about, like our audience, and how this download I just got right now, how when you're at the moment of the next leveling up of your evolution, this is what it sounds like. This is what
Mhm.
happens, is that, there's chaos, and like, you're in the mud, and then there is a breakthrough on the other side, but you don't know that because you're so caught up in all the crap that's happening, all the things that's, just like Laurel said, is removing you from that smooth sailing, perhaps, like that sense of stability, and you're wondering what's going on. Well, just know that, keep it in mind that you are at this stage of your personal journey. You're divorced, you're, like the dust is starting to settle, like it's going to shake you up a bit and then level you up. So hold on, this is a moment in time.
Yes, absolutely. And it definitely it extends into this entire week. Like that was just one energy that's like part of this third week of July. And it might not come through as loud as I just described it. I like to try to paint a spectrum so you kind of can be like, oh, could that be this thing happening
Yeah.
in a subtle way, right? Like, because it does happen subtle a lot of the times. But as we progress through that week, on July 18th, so just a few days later, the sun in Cancer is going to actually make a collaborative communication with Uranus. So Uranus, who shakes things up, the sun is actually going to be like, hey, how can I help you over there with this changing thing that you're trying to do, with this like evolution thing you're trying to do? And so that brings this like kind of like a aha little light bulb moment. Like we're kind of like, oh my God, there's a possibility right there waiting for me. And it can indicate some positive changes. It's like we have a few days here. So it's like, oh, maybe something is like shook into place, right? Kind of like this, oh my God, okay, here's what I might be able to do about this. That might be able to reestablish or enhance some of that security that might have gotten a little shaken previously. The 20th, Mars in Taurus is going to make its sextile to Neptune. So this is really about like that, taking inspired actions, taking compassionate actions, right? Combining your desire to accomplish and to do practical things with your imagination for how you might do it, especially with whatever insights have been coming through recently. And then the same day, the 20th, Mars leaves Taurus, where it had been for like 6 weeks, and enters Gemini. And so there's going to be a shift in kind of our actions and what we're in, like putting our hands on, towards intellectual pursuits and creating more variety in our actions and in our kind of execution on different plans that we might be crafting or cultivating. It's definitely a time for curiosity and for exploring new interest. And so you can even see just in those few transits, there's almost like this storyline that's playing out. There's like kind of this like, even from the week before, Venus opposes Pluto, and we're kind of like, maybe some relational imbalances. And then this kind of like big, like, oh shit, let's shake up some of our security here and liberate ourselves in some way. And then into like, okay, well, what do we do from here? Where are we going to go from there? Let's start thinking about different ways. Let's start taking some steps towards these different ideas that have been coming up and coming through. And then finally on the 21st, we have a big freaking full day. Everything seems to be like culminating to the 21st. There's a full moon in Capricorn, which is actually going to be our second one this year. So this is fun fact. This is a blue moon. This is a blue moon. This is once in a blue moon, is when the same sign has a lunation twice in the same year. So that's fun, but it is going to be a full moon in Capricorn that is going to be right nestled up next to Pluto, who is this depth, this transformation, this facing some fears energy. And so this is going to be a very potent time and kind of like part two of releasing really deep seated emotional limits or blockages or boundaries that influence our approach to power, influence our approach to how we control and master our feelings and what we are looking to accomplish on an emotional level. So that looks like a bit of a doozy of a full moon, lots of depth there. And then the same day, Mercury is going to square Uranus. So that is kind of like sudden changes in communication, unexpected messages, maybe loss or lapses in logistics there. So that can be a little surprising. But luckily, there are some other nice things happening. On the same day, Venus is going to sextile Jupiter. So there is something expansive happening within our relational dynamics, in finding joy and maybe a versatile, different, enlightening kind of connections or conversations. So it does look like this would be a good day for trying something really different that feels pleasurable in some way, that maybe you've been like, oh, I've been wanting to go out to that spot. Seems like there could be some fun in that. But also there's like, it's multifaceted. It's a very multifaceted day, and it too carries with this kind of spiritual and creative energy, with the sun in Cancer trining Neptune in Pisces. So it's like a super full third week of July.
It sounds very busy, I should say, like
Yes, it does.
emotionally charged. I'm just like,
Very.
following what you're saying and like just visualizing and feeling it into it. So, question, Laurel, like best practices for like this blue full moon. I mean, like it's a full moon, blue moon, right? What would you recommend for like our audience, in preparation or to take advantage of it with that's in line with the July forecast?
Absolutely. I think since we have so much focus around Cancer energy, and this is going to be a full moon in Capricorn, which full moons are always opposite. So the full moon is in Capricorn when everything else is in Cancer, right? It's going to be really important to focus on what it is you're looking to emotionally achieve within your bonds, within your emotional support systems, within the safe containers you're looking to build for yourself. The full moons are really about releasing what is no longer serving us. And especially in Capricorn, it is very heavy on like the limits. That's what Capricorn does, right? It creates structure, it creates form. Therefore, anything with a form has its own limits around it, right? So it's really about thinking on what is it that you're looking to achieve emotionally, right? Like what is it that you are instinctually driven to accomplish? And in what ways how has your evolutionary journey contributed to wherever you're at now along that journey, and what kind of maybe self-imposed limitations can you objectively, just kind of matter of factly be like, this thing's got to go. The moon in Capricorn is not very emotional. It's a lot more practical and pragmatic about emotions, right? So like, do I encourage you to tap in to whatever the feelings are that you've been contending with, that have been getting in the way of you accomplishing your emotional motivations and goals, and achieving whatever safe, secure success feels like to you, and really focusing on what it feels like to you so that you can let go of what needs to essentially kind of like regenerate and allow that healing to enter in.
I love that. Make space for the new that's coming that you want. And I'm going to just, talk about Neville Goddard real quick. He talks about starting from the end. Visualize the end, the way that you are, like wanting the situation to be. And that's the beginning. And I think what's really important for if you don't have a practice to tie all of this together, that Laurel, that like her amazing and practical advice is to journal, because that's
Mhm.
honestly the only way you're going to have that self awareness of where you've been, where you're at, and where you'd like to go. And then you can reflect back on it. That's one of my most favorite things to do, is to reflect back on past journal entries just to see where I was at, like maybe even a month ago. And I've just changed. And, it's just a really nice and very powerful like exercise to incorporate here with this ritual or this awareness.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I'm a big fan of journaling myself. It just kind of creates this free form space to just connect with that higher self, to just like honestly just brain dump, just info dump, to really access our Mercury and just like get things out of the headspace. And it does create so much space, and it allows you to kind of see the flow of your thoughts and the way that they're structured and the way that they circle back around, which is really important, especially during this kind of lunation where again it is like a part two on releasing some of these specific fears, or limitations, to really monitor your progress and monitor your growth.
That's fantastic. And you're giving them so much. So I can't even express how much I appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, it's just what I do. It just comes from the heart, just in my lane.
It is
So
your very essence, and we're grateful to have you.
Love you.
Love
So
you.
let's wrap up July with the last week, the fourth week of July, which I have here as like July 22nd through the 31st, which I know is a little more than like a week, but bear with me. So this week is got another tonal type of shift where it seems like we're kind of like maybe coming on back onto some of a little bit of a upslope, at least emotionally speaking, because the third week certainly does seem to carry a lot of sensitivity with it. But this fourth week, this last week, is really seems to be about celebrating our identity, pursuing our passions, and focusing on practical problem solving, and looking at ways to kind of balance our needs with collective needs a bit more. And so on July 22nd, the sun enters Leo and it's Leo season. And then we are saying goodbye, Cancer season. And so there's going to be a very large emphasis and very large focus now on all of these kind of Leo qualities, so being a role model, showing up, a little dramatic self-expression, the performer within us all like turns up a little bit, as well as our kind of connection to self and identity and ego in a sense. That doesn't mean in a bad sense, just kind of a little bit more of like, oh shit, the light's shining on me. I'm a me. That's right. And so this is going to be a really important time to really embrace your creativity. Our kind of connection to our willpower is turned up a little bit during Leo season. It's a very, very strong time for being seen, being witnessed, being recognized. We all might find ourselves looking for a little extra pat on the back, or a little extra like, that was nice. And you're like, yes, I know. And don't be afraid to give that to yourself too. Like validation, praise, approval. These are very important qualities of ego and identity. And it's important to have a healthy relationship with your ego and with yourself, because it really helps you to make confident decisions and to show up assuredly in your life across various dimensions there. And so, as is the norm right now, when a planet enters Leo, pretty much the next day, it makes an opposition to Pluto. You guessed it, Pluto. So on the 23rd, this is another opportunity that really like spotlights, puts a big light on the way we're like balancing our personal identity choices, maybe some ego choices against or in opposition to power struggles, power dynamics, maybe some progress and innovation. Like, is there anything within our ego that we are so eager to hold on to that it is keeping us from evolving towards a more progressive stage in our lives? That's the kind of questions I can expect to come up. Maybe not as like articulately, right? But like though situationally, emotionally, this is a time to confront power dynamics with courage. And so it seems like we're getting a little storyline flooding in here. It's like Mercury makes the opposition, we become aware of it. And then makes the opposition, and then we're beginning to engage with it. And then it's like the sun comes in and it's like spotlight, all eyes over here, focus and attention on witnessing some kind of hopefully for us all evolution in this area, or counter opportunity for there to be evolution in this area, right? And then we kind of wrap up the month a little early. July 25th is the last day that there are any exact transits in July. And so we have the sun in Leo. It's going to make a sextile, so a kind of collaborative aspect to Mars, who's in Gemini. And this brings a bit of a boost of confidence, certainly an uptick in energy for our creative projects, from taking bold steps towards our goals, for really like maybe spurning forth into some kind of new interest or idea. Really good day for filming things, I would say, probably, for showing up on camera with energy and enthusiasm. I love that energy. I'm excited about that one. And then lastly, also on July 25th, Mercury leaves Leo and enters Virgo, which really brings our mind, our messaging, our attention, our curiosity, turns it towards precision, turns it towards organization, turns it towards practical problem solving. This is a really great time for us to streamline our thoughts and plans, to make assessments, to use kind of our critical mind to kind of parse out what are all the details we're dealing with here? How can this all fit together? How are we going to enhance our situation? How are we going to enhance our understanding and the way we communicate? So it becomes very practical right there at the end of July, where a lot of July is heavily influenced by our feelings and then also kind of our need to be witnessed. And so right there at the end we kind of get a taste of like, okay, but like practically how are we going to accomplish these things? And so that's July 2024.
Wow. Woo! That is freaking
I know.
phenomenal. And you know what, Laurel? Like, what's coming up for me is that I feel like it's positioning us to prepare for towards the end of the year. I know we still have a couple months, hello August to through December, but I feel like it's setting us up to really fine tune what we want for the remaining of the year, and then to obviously, I mean, who wouldn't want to evolve and quantum leap themselves in 2025? So I feel like we're getting a head start with all of the wisdom that you've shared with us here and what to look out for. So I hope that our audience has taken to heart what Laurel has shared with us here, and we're so grateful for your gifts and your knowledge. And is there anything, like any advice that you have for like our audience, even though you've given such great key things to look out for, perhaps like last minute thing that has come up for you?
I think that it's just important to stay flexible as we enter into that second half of the month. Like I said, the first half seems, there are a couple of little notable I got my eyes on you moments, but they're brief, they're kind of glimmers. And otherwise it seems relatively smooth, all things considered, like, knock on wood. But then it does seem like we're going to be really called to remain flexible in moments that might threaten our security, whether it be emotional or physical, in some sense towards that end of the month. And then, in that flexibility, like, don't be afraid to access your bravery and your courage, to act in ways that feel honorable to you. Because as we veer into Leo season, uh, you know, we had Cancer season to kind of incubate, right? To like be supportive, to find like those safe spaces within ourself, to find a spot where we can feel confident in belonging and in connecting, where we feel protected. And then it's like as we get into Leo season, it's like, all right, I've been incubating and now I'm ready to shine. It's like we're
Yes.
ready to demonstrate something. We're ready to show something. There's some piece of ourselves that wants to come out for us to be proud of. Right. And so connect with your sense of honor, especially towards that end of the month. And keep that in mind when you're making decisions, especially in the face of anything that feels turbulent.
That's beautiful. And for like I said, our audience, what you guys can think of is, an analogy. It reminds me of the butterfly, right? The caterpillar in the
Mhm.
cocoon. And we don't know what the heck's going on in there, but this butterfly emerges like a metamorphosis. So I think it's just so perfect. It's just perfect. And everything that Laurel said. So before we wrap up, please let us know where we can find you, what you're working on, any promotions.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you. You can always find me at www.attunedalignment.com, or you can email me at attunedalignment@gmail.com. Still doing my monthly workshops, my birth chart boot camp, Astrology for Self Alignment. That is a 4-day workshop intensive. It is virtual via Zoom. We meet for 2 hours a day for 4 days, once a month, and we just do a very deep, thorough dive into learning the foundations of astrology, what it is, some philosophies on how it might work, and then certainly like the boot camp intensive part comes when we learn the basics of what the heck is a birth chart? What do planets mean? What do signs represent? What are aspects? What are houses? So we kind of demystify astrology in that way, and it's a really wonderful way to get a baseline understanding of how these cosmic energies really truly influence our lives, and also how our awareness can help us to make the most out of the energy that we have available to us and really make informed and intentional decisions and how we want to show up to the energy around us. So that's what I have going on. I am working on something in the background. I'm not totally sure if it's done incubating yet, but maybe in Leo season, I might start to make some of those announcements, which would be just so timely of me. But keep an ear out for some transitions and pivots and new offerings
I
coming
love
your way
that.
in alignment.
I love that, Laurel. I love that you're constantly evolving. You are the real deal. And all of her information is going to be in the show links. And she just gives so much value for free in her workshop. So if you can imagine what she's giving here now to us on a monthly basis and her workshop, imagine what it's like to work with her, which I am a client. So just know that. And for you high performers out there, I mean, if you really want to do some time bending and shifting and quantum leaping in your life and personally and professionally, like me as a high performer, hit her up. And with that, thank you so much for being here, Laurel, and our
Thank
audience.
you.
And we will wrap up here. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks so much, Cheryl.
That's it for the July forecast. There is so much here that Laurel has given us, and I hope you really take it to heart. Be sure to, have a practice of mindfulness and self-awareness and harness the energies that July is giving us here. I would be most grateful if you can help me in my mission of uplifting and empowering the lives of millions of divorced women and single moms by hitting that like, subscribe, and share button. As always, no matter where you're at in your journey, no matter how old you are, it gets better from here. Thank you.